Hello everybody. I was actually scrolling through YouTube just a little bit ago and I came across Mel Thompson's newest video in which she talks about things that makeup brands do that she hates, and I figured such a cool idea, might as well do a similar version of it myself. I love Mel Thompson. I watch so many of her videos. I have not yet watched this one though because I wanted all of these opinions and ideas to be my own. So I'll put her channel down below as well as the original video if you haven't checked her out already. I will be watching that video as soon as I'm done filming this one, but if you haven't already checked out Mel Thompson's channel, I'd highly recommend you do so, and I'll put her down below. But anyway, let's just get into this video because, spoiler alert, it's going to be a little bit ranty because there's so many things that I just don't like it when brands do them, you know? And when I was planning out this video, I had a few ideas and then they just kept coming, so it just kind of snowballed. But anyway, the first one. Photoshopping models' skin to make it look darker for swatches. Now, there have been so many brands that have been, I would say, called out for this or have been revealed to do this, but basically something that's a really big thing right now in makeup marketing is swatching makeup products on on models' skin. These swatches are usually posted to the website or on social media. However, what really irritates me is when you have certain brands use the same model but use Photoshop to alter that model's skin tone to make it look like they're using 3 different models when they're only using 1. And she has light skin. It's really deceiving because you're not actually seeing that product on an actual deeper skin model. You're only seeing that product on a photoshopped canvas, if that makes any sense. And it's just plain old sneaky and inconsiderate and just disgusting, because the brands that do this, or that I've seen, are brands who are really successful and they could very well afford to pay more money to hire more models, but instead they just use one model and alter her skin tone to make her look deeper or lighter. Usually it's deeper, but I don't like it at all. I think it's really deceiving and it's just ridiculous. You're deliberately lying, you're trying to trick us, and it's gross, and I absolutely do not like it. The next point that I have kind of goes in this same vein, and it's when brands use inclusivity as a marketing tactic. I do think that it's in brands' best interest right now to appear inclusive, and I say appear very carefully because some brands genuinely do look as if they're so inclusive, because some brands have been inclusive right out of the gate. They have always really been inclusive with shade ranges, marketing, and all that, but other brands, they look at where the market is going, they look at what the consumers are calling for, and they're thinking, okay, so let me just be more inclusive, not because I want to be inclusive, but because it's a good marketing tactic. This is especially obvious in my first example. You have brands literally altering models' skin because they want to appear more inclusive without actually paying the money to hire models that have that deeper skin tone. But I will say that this type of thing, it's very difficult in my mind to pinpoint. You can't just like point at a random brand and say, oh yeah, that brand is being inclusive because it's cool right now. And that's, I think, I don't like calling out certain brands whenever it comes to this, because what if they are actually trying to be genuinely inclusive? But I do feel like with so many brands out there these days, a lot of them are not being very genuine in their inclusivity. And I do find myself very irritated by the fact that it's so difficult to pinpoint because, like I said before, there are so many brands that are genuinely trying to improve themselves or have been improving themselves right out of the gate. But there are also brands who are not necessarily doing it for the genuine reasons, rather they're doing it because they see where the cash flow is going and they want to be a part of that. I don't like it when brands present inclusivity as an enormous hoop to be jumped. Now, I will say that there are, like I said before, so many brands who are very inclusive with their shade ranges, with their marketing. It's really wonderful to see that, especially in 2019. But what I don't like is when you have certain brands imply or flat out state that, well, it's so difficult to be more inclusive in shade ranges, or we'll look at us, we're trying to really be inclusive, but we're doing like a really obviously terrible job at it. And especially when you have bigger brands, like really luxury makeup brands, and they're coming out with say 5 to 8 shades of light to medium and nothing for deeper skin tones, or like just a few shades for deeper skin tones, but the proportions are completely off. And it's annoying to me that these brands, who are perfectly capable of being inclusive with their shade ranges or raising the bar when it comes to their shade ranges, are so lazy and they don't want to do it. I don't know why. I think that we all remember when the Fenty Pro Filter Pro Matte Foundation came out. I forget what it's called, but when that foundation came out, like I would go into Sephora and all the deeper shades would literally be completely sold out, and the only shades that would be in stock were like the lighter ones, were the medium ones. You know what I mean? There is a market for deeper complexions. There is a market for that, obviously. It's been glaringly obvious for decades, centuries, but for some reason, brands, they just don't want to cater to that market. And I don't really understand why, because if you're looking at the money-making aspect of it, there is money to be made in that arena. And I don't understand why people's thinking seems to be so antiquated. Antiquated? It's ridiculous. I do not understand why I look on Trendmood or just any other makeup news website or account, and I see concealers being launched, powders being launched, foundations being launched, palettes being launched that do not cater, or do not cater enough to people who have deeper complexions. And especially when you have like really big name brands doing it, like really successful multi-billion-dollar or multi-million or billion-dollar brands doing it, I'm just like, why? You really seem like you're in the last century right now, and you seem absolutely just idiotic if you're doing this, and I don't understand it. Another thing is, I don't like it when brands behave like social media influencers online, and let me explain. There are so many instances, more recent and a little bit, well, I would say older, in which you have brands using their social media channels to be petty, to spread gossip, to spill the tea when really you're a brand. I think that if an influencer says something or shares an opinion, it's, I would say, a little bit more acceptable, because that's what they are doing. That's their entire job description, you know, almost. But like whenever brands do that, whenever brands call people out or try to like stir the pot, add more to the drama, it just looks really unprofessional. It looks quite petty, and not in a good way, because in my mind, a brand, whether it is big or small, is supposed to treat their customers with respect, treat everybody fairly, not get into all this drama, because yes, a lot of people are thriving off of drama, and so many people have gotten so much success online from talking about drama. But whenever I see brands just adding to the drama or just stirring the pot like that, I'm kind of like, where's your professionalism? Like, are you here to sell us product, or are you here to add more drama to something that's going to be forgotten about in about a few months? Unfortunately, I do think that with the ever-expanding rise of social media, politeness and civility in terms of just interacting with other people online or interacting with each other online, that's kind of being thrown out the window. People are very much more likely to speak their true and very, very rude thoughts online, and unfortunately brands are falling into that trap as well. I personally want to be able to go on a brand's social media account and see a really just well done, really curated array of products, announcements, maybe a little bit of one-on-one with the customer, because I always like it when brands like give shout outs to the people that are wearing their product, you know. But that's the kind of interaction that I want to see, positive interaction. I don't want to see something that's purposely negative. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see anything that's childlike, because honestly, that's not what I look on a brand's page for, and I don't know why they're doing it. Another thing that's kind of petty, but you know, this is the kind of like petty and still very deep video that I want to put out today. I actually don't like it when brands put out big palettes. And if you guys watch my Will I Buy It videos, you guys know that I go all in on this in those videos. I am just so sick of brands really releasing these gigantic palettes, because I look at that and I think, why? Because I think that whenever you release a gigantic palette, you're essentially, I would say, compartmentalizing yourself into that niche of the beauty industry in which you have just full-on makeup releases that always consists of large rainbow palettes, and I don't really see much creativity in that, and I cringe to say this, I know, but like I want to see something that's a little bit smaller, a little bit more edited. I would say 35 colors is the limit for me. I'm talking about the Morphe palettes, because like some of those Morphe palettes are in my mind very well curated. You have the Boss Mood palette, which I think is a terrific color story. I think that works. But then again, you have like the ginormous palettes that everybody seems to be launching. And even, let's just talk about Morphe because I love talking about Morphe, but even Morphe, like they would, like at some point in time, they were launching brown palettes that had 35 colors in them, and I was like, I'm thinking now, at the time I was like, how did they find success with that? Because they're literally like launching 35 colors of brown. I don't get it. But anyway, my point is that I wish that brands would edit their color stories down a little bit and make their palettes a little bit more, I would say, concentrated, make them have a certain theme, because then I think that you have a lot more opportunity to consistently be releasing new colors and new releases without necessarily getting burnt out. Because if you have a large palette full of like every eyeshadow shade you can think of, how are you going to push the release of another eyeshadow palette when your customers have already bought the ginormous eyeshadow palette that they are trying to get through? Another point that I want to make about specifically eyeshadow palettes, you guys know how much I love eyeshadows. I don't like it when you have a palette that is literally consisting of almost exclusively neutral shades and then like a pop of color right just randomly there. We saw that with the pop of blue, we see that with pops of pink, every color. Basically, brands releasing like a very neutral palette with a pop of color, and what's really funny is that brands always seem to try and promote the pop of color as much as possible as if it is the entirety of the palette, when really the entire palette is nothing new. It's something that we've all seen before, and the only minutely interesting thing in that entire palette is that pop of color. I think that it's a very age-old marketing tactic. It's boring at this point. We all see it. I mean, I did buy the KKW Beauty and Mario palette, but like that is a really good palette and I really like it. That was like an exception. But yeah, just in general, these days I don't buy large eyeshadow palettes like that. Ooh, another thing that I don't like is seeing brands badmouth influencers. Some brands are very good at maintaining really strong relationships with influencers, and that is great. But then you have other brands that I'm not going to name here, but you have other brands who, to varying degrees, have really screwed over influencers. Some have done so in a really big way, some in a not so big way, but I really do think that after being on YouTube for a few years now, I kind of have an idea, or albeit a small inkling of an idea, of how much work it really takes for influencers to get their content into the internet, for influencers to connect with their audience. It's a hard job. It's not the hardest job I think anyone could ever have, but it's a job that is a job. It's a job that requires you to have a certain amount of ability, and it's not by any means easy. And let me just say, I also have another job that I really love, but that job is decidedly much more difficult than this one, and that's why this one is like my fun hobby that I do. But, and I say that with the intention of conveying to you that I understand that this is not the most difficult job on the planet, but I do think that work is work, and whenever you have influencers, big or small, promoting a certain brand or trying to work with a certain brand, it kind of irritates me whenever brands don't treat them with respect or brands undervalue them. And that happens a lot. And I definitely will say that I myself am not somebody who has a ton of experience working with brands. I would like to work with brands a little bit more in the future, but that is something that I sort of see on the outside looking in, and that I've experienced a little bit with brands just not taking influencers seriously. and I really don't like that. But with that being said, that is all I have to say for today's video. These were all just like a few points that I really felt strongly about, of course to varying degrees, but I do hope that you guys enjoyed this video and found it interesting. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and I will see you next time. Bye guys.